35 years after the horrible murders of three teenagers, the well-known Sweet 16 killer returns on Halloween night seeking a fourth victim. Jamie, 17, refuses her overprotective mother's warnings and meets the masked, monstrous murderer. While fleeing for her life, she accidentally time travels back to 1987, the year that saw the horrific killings. Jamie teams up alongside her teen mom to locate the killer to end everything. Spoiler ahead, watch out. The movie starts off with the narrator describing a terrible occurrence that occurred 35 years ago in a town called North Vernon. In October 1987, a girl named Tiffany was murdered with violence in her garage on the night of her 16th birthday celebration. Marissa, another young girl, was discovered dead at her family cabin in the woods over 2 days later. On Halloween night, the third victim, Heather, was murdered with violence in the parking area at an amusement park. It turns out that all three victims were 16 years old and were all stabbed 16 times. Therefore, the attacker is known as the Sweet 16 killer. It is later revealed that the perpetrator never killed any individual afterward, and the real identity was never discovered. In the present, we meet an individual from the area named Chris Dubassage, who hosts a podcast regarding these events. Every Halloween, he gives a tour of the murder sites. In the next scene, we see Jamie, a teenage girl preparing to attend a Halloween performance. Her mother, Pam, appears and prevents her from stepping outdoors. Pam is revealed to have been good friends with the three girls who were murdered in 1987, yet Jamie neglects her advice and decides to attend. Her father, Blake, watches the two disputing and agrees to accompany Jamie to the location, just when he observes a person messaging his wife, which Pam believes is a group chat. Later, Blake takes Jamie over to her best friend Amelia's place. Amelia's mother, Lauren, appears as well, and it turns out that the woman is an old friend of Pam and Blake. Lauren leaves for work. Blake takes the girls for the show. Meanwhile, Pam is alone at home until a masked stranger appears at her door. She thinks it's simply another dressed-up person and hands him candy. However, as soon as she sees a knife in his grip, she shuts the door. She immediately calls the police, but the guy smashes through the door and attacks her. Surprisingly, she makes up an effective battle, having prepared for this particular occasion since she was 16 years old. He goes on to stab her specifically 16 times till she dies. Jamie feels helpless and heartbroken by her mother's death, whereas Chris, a true crime passionate, broadcasts life outside the house. The next day at school, the cops approach and ask Jamie where her father was when the crime occurred. They suspect that Blake was involved as Pam and Chris frequently texted each other and they could appear to be having a relationship. However, Jamie immediately rejects the claims, arguing that her dad could never do something like that, and blames the police for neglecting to capture the killer 35 years ago. After school, Jamie goes to a science fair where Amelia is at work on a time machine. Amelia reveals that her mother, Lauren, had been working on a time travel project but never completed it. Now equipped with her mom's old notes, she has a plan to create an operational time machine. She wishes to find out whether or not they are able to go back in the past to prevent those kinds of crimes. And Jamie comments that if they could, her mother would continue to be alive. To do so, Amelia sets the time to October 27, 1987, when the very first murder occurred. On the following day, Jamie meets Chris at a cafe. She questions him directly if he and her mother have been having an affair. However, he refuses that. He clarifies that Pam was truly interested in solving the serial killer case, so they texted one another. He further states that following the last murder 35 years ago, Pam received a note from the killer threatening her life, claiming she was going to be the next victim. Later that day, disappointed, Jamie arrives at the science fair to visit Amelia. Suddenly, the killer appears and begins hitting Jamie. The girl escapes and hides. In an attempt to rescue herself, she mistakenly enters the time machine, which is the photo booth, and attempts to activate it. Sadly, the killer chases her, and while attempting to attack her, mistakenly crashes the knife into the control panel. This generates greater electricity, which immediately sparks the time machine. Fortunately, the device functions before the perpetrator can catch her, and Jamie is sent to 1987 on the same date of the first murder. She is initially alarmed to discover that this is in fact 35 years ago. Following that, Jamie puts an out-of-order sign onto the time machine before approaching a random woman around. She asks for Pam, while the woman tells her that the girl's at school. Jamie rushes to the town school where her mother had studied. She describes herself as an exchange student from Canada and is immediately admitted. Later in gym class, Jamie is surprised when she meets Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather. All three killed girls. After class, she realizes that her mother behaves superior to everybody around and is a total bully. Jamie also finds information regarding Tiffany's birthday party that evening, wherein she is supposed to die. She attempts to convince the girls to call off the party, stating it's lame, although they are unwilling to listen. Dissatisfied, she turns to the local police seeking assistance, alerting the authorities that a murder is about to take place at Tiffany's residence. However, the cops begin laughing, claiming that there has not been a murder in their community. Jamie continues wandering throughout the school and then asks the receptionist about Amelia's mother, Lauren. She then attends Lauren's class. When she finds her, Jamie informs her about the particular machine she will be creating in the future and reveals the whole scenario. She also warns Lauren about future murders and provides facts from her notebook. Lauren trusts her, which is unexpected given that nobody else is aware of the secret notebook or her plans for creating a time machine. Jamie continues she really wishes to prevent the killer from continuing to kill everyone, especially her mother, and that Wi-Fi is the only means by which she can return to the future. Considering it wasn't there in 1987, she relies on Lauren's experience in seeking a different option. Back in 2023, we find Blake wildly looking for Jamie and communicating with the police. Suddenly, Amelia approaches them and tells them that Jamie used her time machine. Naturally, nobody believes her, but Chris is interested in the things she has just explained. Meanwhile, in 1987, Lauren and Jamie visit Tiffany's evening birthday celebration to stop the murder. At the party, Jamie meets Doug, who later becomes her principal. Jamie notices a handsome guy. She is surprised to realize that the boy is her father, Blake. She also discovers that Tiffany and Blake are in a relationship, while her parents, Blake and Pam, have not begun dating. Tiffany then takes a boy upstairs for a little pleasure. However, she quickly runs to the bathroom, but upon her return, the guy has left. She hears sounds coming from the closet. Suddenly, the killer emerges from the closet and advances and approaches her before violently killing her. Throughout the loud music celebration, Jamie is desperately looking for Tiffany to keep her safe. Unfortunately, she discovers her late, as her lifeless body is discovered in her parents' bedroom. Jamie understands she has the ability to change the past. Tiffany was spotted dead in the garage within the regular timeline. Yet in this different timeline, she is discovered in her parents' bedroom. Jamie and Lauren then walk Pam home, given that they are unwilling to allow her to be alone. When Pam wonders how she knew about the murder, Jamie reveals she's psychic and can predict who would be killed. Back in 2023, we see Amelia fixing her time machine to bring Jamie back. Chris appears unexpectedly and expresses an interest in examining the time machine. As they converse, Chris discovers he's been recalling the facts incorrectly. Tiffany's horrible murder occurred in the bedroom, never the garage as he had previously assumed. Finally, Amelia and Chris examine an image from 1987 and discover that Jamie has actually gone back in time. Back in the past, Jamie attempted to stop the group from traveling to the cabin, where the next killing would occur. The teacher then sends Jamie to work with the strange, usually harassed youngster named Damon, while she examines those odd sketches in Damon's notebook. Afterward, Marissa and the girls pick up Jamie and drive to Marissa's parents' condo. However, when they go there, Jamie is startled to see that it is not an actual condo. It's the same spooky cabin in the woods where Marissa died. Jamie strongly tries to convince them to go, but another group of guys arrive and choose to party at their cabin. Jamie, concerned, tries to establish some safety regulations within the cabin while nobody listens to her. Later in the evening, one of those boys locks her outside the cabin. Determined to gain entry, she looks for a way in and discovers a window. Looking inside, she discovers Heather, one of the 3 victims, resting asleep on the bed. Meanwhile, Marissa and another guy agree to make use of time outside. The killer pursues Heather while raising the radio loudly. Heather awakens with enough time to leave the room, however. The killer tosses her down the stairs and proceeds to kill her. This reverses the order of deaths, and rather than Marissa, Heather dies. The other companions team together to defeat the killer, however. He overcomes them, regardless of their survival. After the killer flees the house and leaves the teens alone, they go to the police station to tell them about the murder. Jamie tries to help by providing the killer's blood for DNA testing. However, the cops have no idea what DNA is. Jamie speaks with Damon at school, where it is shown that he is simply a normal bookish boy with no link with the killer. Following the tragedy, the entire gang, including Jamie, begins preparing how to capture the murderer. They decide to use Marissa as a trap because Jamie knows that she is the final individual to be killed in 1987. Lauren needs an enormous amount of force to operate the time machine. She will work towards converting an attraction into a makeshift time machine so Jamie gets to move forward, whereas Chris assists Amelia in repairing their machine at the present time. The film then switches as Marissa walks around the amusement park, whereas the killer quietly follows her. She moves into a haunted house, while the rest of the party waits for the killer to come. The murderer eventually arrives, and the group manages to kill him. They then reveal the killer's identity, which turns out to be Doug, one of their own classmates. Trish, a student, was sadly killed in a car accident a year ago. Surprisingly, the bullies, namely Tiffany, Marissa, as well as Heather, were the ones responsible for her murder. Once, the three girls invited Trish to Tiffany's house to have a sleepover, with the intention of getting her drunk and pushing her to share information about her suspected romance alongside her coach. Trish ultimately left the residence drunk and got involved in a car accident. Unnoticed by the girls, Trish had begun an affair with Doug. So with the goal of taking revenge on his love, he adopted a mask and began killing the bullies. Jamie disagrees with her mother, Pam, for acting so rude, but Pam claims that she failed to attend the incident due to a fight with Tiffany. She declares she wouldn't ever do stuff so horrific, and Marissa confirms Pam hadn't been engaged. Jamie has become concerned as to why Doug would write Pam a threatening message and then kill her in 2023. However, before the others get through this, the second killer shows up near Marissa and then kills her. This person follows Jamie and kills Chris's father, who is on live TV. They ultimately go into the time machine because it's finally operational, and Lauren informs Jamie that whenever the journey begins, she has to stay within it. Unexpectedly, while the two are talking, the killer appears and attacks them. Jamie begs Lauren to depart immediately, something she does, after which Jamie activates the machine. Pam unexpectedly appears in the situation to assist Jamie, and the brawl between them begins. When the machine begins to spin quickly, Jamie, Pam, and the killer get stuck into the time machine's wall. The killer walks over to Pam and begins to attack her. He strikes her once, and Jamie drags her mom out of the machine as the killer's mask is removed, revealing Chris from 2023 as the culprit. Chris claims that he didn't know that Doug was the actual murderer, and that he murdered Pam just to keep the Sweet 16 killer story fresh 35 years later. He also provided Jamie with a false warning notice with the goal of coming up with even more material for his show and increasing his popularity. He was tired of getting compared to his own father, who was famous and well-known, so he killed him as well. Chris then attacks Jamie, and both of them have an intense battle. The girl shoots him using a nail gun and kicks him onto the spinning machine and kills him. Following this, she travels to the present moment. Jamie appears on the day prior to Halloween in 2023 and feels glad to see Pam still alive and happily married to Blake. At the same time, Lauren remembers all that occurred in the past. Suddenly, a man enters the house and greets Jamie, causing Jamie to seek clarification as to his identity. Lauren then adds that according to this reality, Jamie's parents got together sooner than they had earlier, and she currently has a 34-year-old sibling named Jamie, and also her new name is Colette. Lauren is currently a bioengineer, while Amelia remains Jamie's best friend. Finally, Chris in the present day has been living in an Indian monastery, shocked by watching his dad's passing on live television, unaware that it was himself through another reality. We really hope you enjoyed today's recap of the movie Totally Killer. Please leave a comment below on what you loved about the movie and why. Be sure to like the video, and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing so you don't miss any amazing content. Until next time, light, camera, action. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.